UFC Fight Night Royval versus Taira from the UFC Apex this Saturday night. After UFC 307 last week in Salt Lake City, we return back to the UFC Apex. And a quick disclaimer, I have to get this video done ahead of time, so this video is being recorded on Friday night. I don't know what happened at UFC 307, and if there's any changes to this card from Friday night, again, to when this card's actually, or when this video is being posted on Sunday afternoon, I will, again, give a updated prediction in the comment section down below. But for now, this is the 13 fight card we have for Royval and Taira in the main event from the Apex. And folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. Later this week, we will have our MLB, NLCS, and ALCS predictions, as we posted our NLDS and ALDS predictions earlier in the week as well. We will have our college football picks, we'll have our NFL predictions, amongst others here on the channel. So make sure, again, to stay tuned for other predictions on the channel. But we will have first our Contender Series picks like we do before every single UFC card. Of course, the Contender Series is 2 more weeks. This is week number 9. We start things off here with the flyweight fight between Sean Gauci and Anthony Drillich. Looking at both these guys is interesting because you got two guys coming from Australia. Gauci is a Hex fighter coming from Hex. Anthony Drillich is an Eternal MMA fighter. I like what I've seen out of Drillich more out of Eternal MMA than what I've seen out of Sean Gauci over in Hex. Again, both of the promotions are really good. The two best promotions, I would say, on Australia. Obviously, when you think of Australian MMA or, you know, Oceanic MMA, you think of Eternal and you think of Hex. Like when you think of Italian MMA, you think of Venator, right? Like that's what you think of. You think of Polish MMA, you think of KSW. Eternal and Hex are the two best promotions. I think Drillich has fought the better opponents. I think Drillich has just looked better. Again, Gauci has beat up on guys. He's gotten some nice finishes against some opponents. But again, the guys he has beat have not been that impressive, at least to my liking. I think Anthony Drillich is the better fighter. I think Drillich will win this flyweight fight by unanimous decision. Next up, Islam Dulatov takes on Vanilito Tununez. I probably butchered that. I'm going with Islam Dulatov to win this fight. We're taking the fighter out of Dusseldorf from Germany to win this fight. Again, he's just been way more impressive. He's taken on literally anybody that is, you know, taken him on so far. He's fought some veterans who've, you know, 42-19 records or whatnot. Tununez, Tunez, probably, I think that's how his name is the LFA champion. Won the LFA welterweight championship his last fight. Beat a guy who was 16-8, I believe, for the championship, right? Yeah, 18-6 netto for the belt. Dulatov has just looked better. Again, I understand he hasn't fought in the promotion such as LFA, but for Vanilito, that was his first fight in LFA. He waltzed right in there, won the LFA welterweight championship, and now he's getting a shot in the Contender Series. Like, again, most guys will get shots in the Contender after fighting in LFA or winning the world championship over the regional championship over there. By the way, why Carlos Leal hasn't been given a chance yet in the Contender Series doesn't make sense to me. There's a bunch of guys that the UFC can take advantage of, who, you know, guys who don't, you know, entirely make it on PFL seasons, and yet we're giving shots to Abdullah El Rami in the last Contender Series card where he got dogged on by Torres Finney like we told you he was going to. But anyways, I like Dulatov to win the fight. He's fought better guys. He's got a really good ground game. Where I think he wins this fight is on the feet, though. I think he's got a clear advantage up there. I think he knocks out Tunez by first round knockout, or gets the knockout in the first round. Next up, Mario Pinto takes on Lucas Camacho. Fight could go really either way for me. This is a straight toss-up. You got two heavyweights who hit very hard. I think Mario Pinto is slightly better. He's the younger fighter. He's the quicker fighter as well. And the guy's just huge. He's 6'5". But Lucas Camacho is going to be a willing thrower in this fight. He's a Nova União guy who's going to be willing again to swing heavy with Mario Pinto in this fight. In this fight. This is going to be a war, right? Someone's getting knocked out in the first round. I just like the size, like the quickness out of Pinto. I think he does hit harder, and I think he wins the fight. But again, I don't think Lucas Camacho wins. He's going to be a huge dog going into this fight. But he's going to die trying. If he doesn't get the contract here, he's going to die trying. Someone's getting knocked out, and the winner of this fight will get the contract undoubtedly. Again, a knockout in the first round will always warrant a contract on the Contender Series. So whoever gets it will get the contract. I think it's going to be Pinto, though. I just think he's better. Next up, our second to last fight here in the Contender Series, Cody Steele takes on Jason Blair. For Cody Steele, this is a guy who was supposed to participate on the Contender Series a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. His opponent pulled out on fight day, so they got Cody Steele, or like literally hours before the fight, so they got Cody Steele a replacement in Jason Blair. Steele is expected to win this fight. They got Blair on relatively short notice. He's from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He's been fighting in Cage Warriors. His last win wasn't bad. It's a triangle choke finish in the first or second round, I do believe. But other than that, he has not fought anybody that great. He's been fighting in Cage Warriors. He's 6-2. Has been beaten on the ground multiple times. But I do just think Cody Steele is the better all-around fighter. Again, he's the better striker. He should go out here and take care of business pretty easily. Again, this is a matchup, at least it feels like on the outside, that Cody Steele is just getting a fight where they know he can win and move on to the UFC because, again, he wasn't able to get his first fight on the Contender Series because of, again, a situation outside of his control. I like Steele to win the fight, and I think he gets it done in the first round here against Jason Blair. We go on to the main event. Artem Vaktikov, probably butchered it, but again, I know who he is. We're going to talk about him in a second. Takes on Islam Marsaf. We're going with Artem to win the fight. Artem should win this one. He's a big favorite. You know him from fighting Alex Pereira, obviously, right? He had the 2 fights at the end of Pereira's run in kickboxing in Glory, right? Like as Pereira signed his contract to go on to the UFC, it was already booked that he was going to fight Artem. He lost the fight by majority decision. Now Artem's in the contender trying to, again, follow that lineage of Glory kickboxers in the UFC. Pereira talked about him some on Media Day for 307. Now you get him and Islam Marsaf. Artem should wipe the floor with Islam. Islam is a pure striker for the most part. You might know him from PFL Europe. It was a clip that went viral. He took on, what's the guy's name? Mikhail Grug. It's the clip that you might have seen that it went viral. So Islam's fighting, right? Grug, I think it was Dana Hardy or someone on commentary. It might have been Sean O'Connell, or I don't know who it was, but they say, oh, this is how Mikhail fights. He's really nonchalant. He's going to try to catch you off guard. So he comes in there, he walks up to Marsaf, sticks his hand out, and then kind of just sits there and literally just stands there and waits to get head kicked. Boom, gets put out, and Islam wins the fight. Again, insane stuff. I don't know what the Bucks had to do with that fight. It was kind of weird. But Islam wins. This guy's really unproven. He's 3-0, hasn't fought anybody. Going into the fight, I thought Mikhail was actually going to beat him. Artem should definitely win this fight. He's the way better kickboxer, and Islam doesn't really have a ground game, so he's going to be in a striking battle here with Vaktikov, who, if he wins, is going to be immediately inserted into a big profile fight. Again, this is at heavyweight. Will he ever fight Pereira? No. Maybe he'll go down to 205, possibly. But again, I would expect him to stay at 65, at least I think. He's taking on a big guy, but he's just, again, a lot of heavyweights just suck. So for Artem, the best way to go into the UFC and be successful is just be a really good wrestler. But be an athletic guy. You can out kickbox fighters, because a lot of these heavyweights can't wrestle. They just can't. So if you're just an athletic kickboxer that can stay on the outside and pick them apart, you'll probably win. So give me Artem to win the fight by first round knockout. I don't mind seeing him in the UFC's heavyweight division. All right, we start things off in the flyweight division. We've got Clayton Carpenter taking on Lucas Rocha. This is Rocha's UFC debut. He was booked previously against the likes of Jose Johnson and Josh Van. Both those fights fell through. He fought in the Contender Series last year and beat Davi Bittencourt by TKO in the second round. He's the guy, Rocha missed weight on the card before. This guy is a 5'3" flyweight who missed weight at 125 pounds, weighing at 131, so they had to rebook it for the week after at 135 pounds, and he won the fight. I'm not impressed with Rocha. Again, that's just a discipline thing. You're 5'3" and you can't make 125 pounds? Come on now. Really? Again, and you look at Rocha, right? I mean, again, he could get to 125 pounds, man. I don't know. That's just the first thing off the bat with him. He's taking on Clayton Carpenter, who's 1-0 in the UFC. His only win is Juan Camilo Ronderos. Now, Ronderos is always an interesting guy. I don't know how the UFC found him. I'm going to be honest with you. He's no longer in the promotion. He was booked against Jafel Filo later in 2023 after his loss to Carpenter. He withdrew. Then he got cut from the promotion. Now he's going to be fighting in Tough Enough next week, or actually on the same exact the day before this card with Royval and Taira in the main event. Ronderos is a weird guy, though. I don't know how to gauge how good he is, because he really fought nobody outside the UFC. Came in, lost to Dvorak, lost to Clayton Carpenter, got cut. I really don't know where to put Clayton Carpenter. In terms of ability, he was booked against Steve Erceg. That would have been a really interesting scrap. Fight got canceled. Now here he is against Rocha. What I do know about Carpenter, he's an explosive guy who can get finishes early, right? I mean, you saw what he did on the Contender Series, in LFA, the fight before the Contender Series, won a fight by 13-second knockout, then beat Edgar Chairez, which is not a bad win at all, beating him by unanimous decision. Before that, he was in LFA, won a fight by knee bar in 45 seconds. Carpenter is not a bad name at all. Rocha can strike. I will give him that. His grappling is not horrible at the same time. But Bittencourt, I would say, was definitely winning the fight against Rocha before Rocha landed with that knee. Bittencourt was winning in terms of the grappling exchanges. He was outlanding Rocha as well. And when you look at Clayton Carpenter, again, this is a guy who's able to go out there, he's able to strike, he's able to effectively take you down as well. I like Carpenter wherever this fight goes, truly. I think Carpenter's the better fighter. And again, I don't entirely know where to gauge him, considering, again, his win is Juan Camilo Ronderos. But even, Chairez is not a horrible loss. It's a horrible win. It's not, a win is a win in the UFC, right? I think Carpenter should be able to go out here. I think he should be able to just, again, do enough to win this fight in terms of the striking exchanges, in terms of the grappling as well. I just think he is better than Lucas Rocha. And it's weird because you look at Lucas Rocha on Tapology, right? 62% of voters are going with Rocha to win the fight, compared to 38 going with Clayton Carpenter, which I really don't understand. Carpenter is just the better striker. And again, on the ground, sure, you can say Rocha is not a horrible jiu-jitsu player, I guess. But he gets out scrambled a lot. And on the feet, yeah, Rocha maybe hits harder, but I think as a whole, Carpenter's the better striker too. I like Clayton Carpenter really just wherever this fight goes. And also, Lucas Rocha is still pretty young. He's 24 years old. Carpenter is well into his prime not well into his prime, but in his prime at 28 years of age. I think Carpenter's the better fighter, and I think Clayton Carpenter goes out here, wins the fight here against Lucas Rocha. Let's go into our second fight of the night. We've got Dan Argueta taking on the Contender Series zone in Cody Haddon. Haddon just won the Contender Series this season, and now he's turning it around quickly to fight in the UFC Apex. Again, you are rewarded with your UFC contract, and what did you get? You get the Apex. But Haddon's a guy who's only lost to Steve Erceg back in 2021 in Eternal MMA. Again, I was talking about Eternal and Hex earlier on in this video, and that's why, again, good fighters come out of Eternal and Hex MMA. They just do. And Cody Haddon, again, is a guy who won the Contender Series earlier this year, submitted Billy Brand by first-round rear naked choke, and now he gets Dan Argueta in his first fight in the UFC. And Argueta has had a weird run so far, right? He had the early stoppage, lost to Ronnie Lawrence, but wherever, it was a no contest. He had the Miles Johns no contest as well. The fight that got overturned. Comes in the UFC on short notice. I believe he's the LFA champion. He beats Diego Silva by split decision. Gets a fight against Damon Jackson, loses it by unanimous decision. Beats Nick Aguirre, who was never a real UFC name, then has the 2 no contests, and then just lost his last fight to John Masamoto, who submitted him with the guillotine choke. Now he gets Cody Haddon. Argueta just has had a tough spell so far in the UFC. That's one way to put it, I guess. But he's just been beat pretty much in every single fight he has had, with the exception of the Nick Aguirre fight. But Aguirre, again, I don't know where to rate that guy at all. I don't think he's all that impressive. Cody Haddon looked good in the Billy Brand fight. He did. He was able, again, to knock down Brand in that fight. He was able to find the way to the back and get a submission as well. And Argueta's just kind of been a hand on the ground early in his UFC career. And I get it. He had the Ronnie Lawrence win that was stopped early for him. I think I butchered that earlier. I said it the other way around. But, other than that, Argueta just hasn't been all that great. I don't know. He got beat up by Miles Johns. Of course, Johns failed a drug test afterwards. But again, guys have been able to have success against Argueta on the ground, with the exception, again, of Ronnie Lawrence. And Nick Aguirre, I don't really put much into that fight. We look how Damon Jackson was able to find success on the ground against Argueta, Miles Johns too, and John Masamoto was able to submit him as well. Cody Haddon should have that same game plan to a certain extent. And on the feet too, I like Haddon as well. I think he's the better striker too. But on the ground, that's where I think Cody Haddon does start to take over this fight. Again, 2 of his last wins are by rear naked choke. His 2 last wins are by rear naked choke. He just won 3 weeks ago on the Contender Series as well. I think he should be riding that wave of momentum into this fight with Argueta, especially against a guy in Argueta, again, who's only seen 1 win in the UFC so far. Again, he's had 1 loss overturned, he's had 1 win overturned, but still, I like Cody Haddon to go out here and win the fight. I think he does beat Argueta, and I think he gets it done in the second round by submission. So we're going with Cody Haddon. 3 weeks after winning on the Contender Series, picks up his first win in the UFC as well. Let's go on to our next fight here. We go to the heavyweight division. Oh man, Chris Barnett takes on Junior Tafa. I don't understand the odds for this one. I don't. Why is Junior Tafa such a big favorite? I get it. Chris Barnett took this fight on short notice. This was supposed to be... God, oh wait. No, this fight just got scheduled. So both these guys are taking this fight on short notice. No, Tafa's taking on short notice. Excuse me. This is supposed to be Chris Barnett versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. That's a fight that I don't think would have gone too well for Chris Barnett. But now you give him Junior Tafa, and he's this big of an underdog. I don't think I have this mixed up. I could be wrong, but Best Fight Odds has this fight as these odds. I'm going to check one more time because it still doesn't make sense to me, but I don't think I'm mistaking here. Yes, Chris Barnett is teetering around a plus 280 underdog. Depending what book you get it at, he's around plus 280. Tafa's minus 355. Why? What has Junior Tafa done to warrant him being a minus 355 favorite in the UFC? He's 1-3. He lost to Walter Walker in his hometown, or in his home country at UFC 306. De Lima beat him up. I get it. It was short notice. It was like 24 hours notice. We're willing to put that one aside. Mo Usman out-scrambled him, and he beat Parker Porter. Parker Porter. That's Junior Tafa's run so far in the UFC. He's 1-3. Chris Barnett's 2-2, and his wins, okay, are John Vellante, and Jake Collier. All right, I get it. And Chris Barnett, didn't he miss weight for that fight? Yeah, he did. He missed weight at heavyweight. But still, he's 2-2. His losses are Martin Budai and Ben Rothwell. Not horrible losses in all fairness. Barnett should win this fight, I think, on paper. Yeah, Tafa hits hard. Sure, Barnett hits hard too. He does. Like, both these guys are going to swing pretty big. But Junior Tafa doesn't impress me. If Chris Barnett works the legs at all, if he kicks Junior Tafa's leg, because again, Tafa doesn't check leg kicks. And now, does Barnett really throw leg kicks all that often? No. Barnett's going to throw some wacky stuff here and try to knock Junior Tafa out. And again, you're going to see that huge height discrepancy. Tafa's 6'3", Barnett's 5'9". I get it. Still, Barnett's got a longer reach advantage. He's got a longer reach than Junior Tafa, and he's 5'9", and Tafa's 6'3". I just don't think Junior Tafa is very good. I don't think he is. Walter Walker took him down, dominated him. Now, is Chris Barnett going to take down Junior Tafa? Probably not. That's just not what Barnett does. I like Barnett to catch Junior Tafa in this fight. I think he finds a way to do it. Again, am I picking kind of on value here? A little bit, but still, I pick fights for winners. I don't really pick, I don't care too much about the odds. I pick the fight and who I think is going to win, then I worry about the odds later. I don't mind Chris Barnett in this fight. Again, this is a true 50-50 fight for me. It's the heavyweight division. It's low-level heavyweight fighting. Anything can happen. But, guys, a guy who is 5-3 in his professional mixed martial arts career should not be a minus 355 favorite in any fight he's in. And Chris Barnett's a guy who's 2-2 in the UFC. Sure hasn't really beaten anybody all that good. But still, it doesn't make sense to me. Give me Chris Barnett to win the fight. I think he does catch Junior Tafa early in this one. And I get it. Tafa has only been finished once, and it was by leg kicks, or at least by strikes. It was by leg kicks against De Lima, but I think Barnett finds a way to do it. Again, Tafa's a guy who just lost a month ago, 2 months ago, and I get it. He didn't take damage in that fight against Walter Walker. I think Barnett just finds a way to do it. MMA's a weird sport sometimes, and I think Barnett does it. Again, partially this is just me. Why is Tafa minus 355 favorite? I think we have to take a swing at it with Chris Barnett. He's the way more experienced guy, by the way. He's got 31 professional fights. Junior Tafa has 8. Barnett's so much more experienced. I think he wins. I think he finds a way to win. I think he does. All right. That's probably the biggest underdog we're taking tonight, but probably the biggest underdog on the card, if we're being honest. But I'm taking Chris Barnett to upset Junior Tafa. Again, a guy with that much more experience should not be that big of a dog, especially against guys 1-3 in the UFC. Next up, Themba Gorimbo takes on Nico Price. For Nico Price, this is a guy who's coming off a victory in his last fight against Alex Morono, and Morono is on the main card of this fight card, and here is Nico Price just, here on the undercard, which doesn't entirely make sense, but it is what it is, and he's been tasked with a tough guy in Themba Gorimbo, but at the same time, I think this is a really good test for Gorimbo as well. Gorimbo's 33 years old. If he's going to make a push for the top 15 ever, it has to come right now. And this is kind of the step up that I think he needs to have against a guy like Nico Price, a fighter in Price who, again, I thought was kind of on his way out. He had lost back-to-back fights to Phil Rowe and Robbie Lawler by 39-second knockout. And then he finds a way to beat Alex Morono. And Morono just looked absolutely atrocious in that fight. Nico Price beat him to the punch every single time. Price was able to outstrike him. Price was able to find a way to out-wrestle him as well. And again, I thought Price was kind of done, if I'm being honest with you. I thought he ultimately kind of was, right? You saw the way he fought Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe dominated him and ended up getting the finish in that fight. Robbie Lawler just caught him with basically the first clean punch of the fight. Robbie Lawler put Nico Price down and knocked him out. Again, I was low on Nico Price. I'll be completely honest with you. I was. This fight against Gorimbo, though, should be an interesting test, considering, yeah, he was better against Alex Morono, but I don't know. Morono looked so slow in that fight, it was just weird. And now Morono's going to get Daniel Rodriguez. Why is he getting a step up in competition? I don't get it. I really don't. For Nico Price, this guy has won 2 fights since the pandemic has started. It's just, Nico Price, again, he gets in these fights, they're fun, stylistic fights, he'll trade back and forth, but ultimately he'll probably lose. And I think that's kind of the style of fight that's going to happen here. I think Gorimbo finds a way, but it's a much needed fight for Gorimbo. Look what Gorimbo's done so far in the UFC. First fight in the UFC, loses, gets choked out by AJ Fletcher. Then he comes back, beats Takashi Sato by decision, beats P. Rodriguez like he's supposed to do, knocks him out in the first round, and then beats up on Ramiz Brahimaj, beats him by unanimous decision. Again, these are fights Gorimbo's supposed to win. These are bottom of the barrel type guys. Sato, Rodriguez, Brahimaj. These are Brahimaj's gonna fight Mickey Gall in New York in November. Again, these are bottom of the barrel guys that Gorimbo should beat. Now he gets Niko Price, who, again, is, on the tail end of his run and is not the guy he once was, but still a guy that's going to be willing to bring a brawl, still a guy who can strike. But again, if Gorimbo is anything near what, the UFC is kind of hyping him up to be, again, anything near what we think he can be, Gorimbo should easily win this fight. He should find, holes in the Niko Price game. Niko Price leaves himself to get hit a lot. He will throw back, but again, if you are a half-competent striker, you're going to throw back in Niko Price's direction, and you're going to do damage to Niko Price, and that's what I'm expecting Themba Gorimbo to do in this fight. Again, to fight Gorimbo's got to have, he's 33 years old, he's 3-1 in the UFC. Do I think Gorimbo's going to be a title challenger someday? No, I don't. But if he's ever going to make that run to the top 15, it has to be right now, and I think he does get it done against a guy in Niko Price, who is coming off a victory, but come on. And also, why is Niko Price going from main card of a pay-per-view to undercard of the Apex? I don't have an issue with him being undercard of the Apex. It's just, why is he on the main card of a pay-per-view in the first place? I'm just saying. Give me Themba Gorimbo to win the fight. I like him in the striking in this one. I think Gorimbo, again, eventually puts Price down and away. Give me Themba Gorimbo by second round TKO to beat Niko Price with the biggest win of his career. Next up, JSP Jonathan Pearce takes on Pat Sabatini in the featherweight division. This is a good scrap. I think it is. Now, again, Jonathan Pearce does not have the hype he once did at one point in time. JSP, in my mind, was a future top 10 guy. I don't really see that anymore. Again, he was on a huge winning streak. The one fight that I talked about every single time we ever had a Jonathan Pearce fight was his fight against Joe Lauzon in Boston, Massachusetts, October 2019. It was a Friday night, and he lost to Joe Lauzon. Lauzon put it on him and finished him in 93 seconds. Pearce then bounced back, beat Kai Kamaka III, beat Omar Morales, beat Christian Rodriguez, beat Makwan Amirkhani, beat Darren Elkins, and then they gave him Joe Anderson Brito, and Brito submitted him in the second round. Bounced back and lost to David Onama. A close fight on the undercard of Nicolau and Perez. The scorecards are a little interesting. It's dependent on how you score the first round. I thought JSP won the first round. I thought he won 1 and 2. And I thought he should have won the fight. It was contrary of what we kind of thought the fight was going to be. We thought Onama was going to be the one kind of gassing, but JSP's tank has never been the best in his own right. But I thought JSP won the fight. Now you give me him and Pat Sabatini. Sabatini's a guy who's coming off a loss to Diego Lopez. Okay, it's Diego Lopez. Lopez, again, is in the top 3 of the weight class. He's en route to being in line for a championship opportunity very soon. Sabatini, before that, submitted Lucas Almeida. Lost to Damon Jackson prior to that as well. He got finished in the first round against Damon Jackson. Beat TJ Laramie, beat Tucker Lutz, beat Jamal Emmers, beat Tristan Connolly. Again, those wins are not going to wow you by any stretch of the imagination. But we should get a good stylistic scrap on the ground in this fight. Both these guys are very good grapplers. JSP, actually, I take that back about JSP. At one point in time, I considered him a really good grappler. No, I would still say he's a good grappler. Really good? I don't know. Brito caught him in a sub. I would still say he's a decent grappler. I don't know who's the better. These guys are close on the ground. They are. I'm going to ever so slightly lean towards Jonathan Pearce, because of what Jonathan Pearce, I think, is able to do on the feet as well. On the ground, I think these guys are really evenly matched. They both have, again, very diverse skill sets on the ground. They have a lot of submissions they can attack. Again, Jonathan Pearce's wrestling, I would favor slightly over Pat Sabatini's as well. But I like JSP on the feet. I think, again, JSP's the bigger fighter. He's going to be much bigger in this fight. He's going to have like 4 inches in terms of height on Pat Sabatini, which, again, doesn't, tell the whole story. Obviously, we picked Chris Barnett to beat Junior Tafa, but that's fine. I do like GSP here on the feet. A lot of people, JSP, my goodness, George St. Pierre is not fighting. I do like JSP on the feet. I think he is able to, I think he's able to inflict some damage on Sabatini in terms of the striking game, and on the ground, too. I don't mind Jonathan Pearce as well. I think, again, these guys are very evenly matched on the ground, and on the feet, I do think JSP is slightly better, and that's why I'm going to pick Jonathan Pearce to win the fight. Again, they're almost even for a reason. You got JSP at minus 130, Sabatini coming back at you around that minus 100 or plus 100, minus 110 range, and I think that's fair because Sabatini could easily just go into this fight and be the clear better grappler. I think, again, whoever wins the first round's winning this fight. This is not going to be a close fight either way. It's close going into it, but early on in this fight, we are going to know who the better fighter is. I mean, that's kind of how I see this one going. Whoever dictates where the fight ends up is going to win it. If Sabatini is dictating it, he's going to be the aggressor on the ground. He's going to be the one in top position. If JSP is doing it, JSP is going to be, again, limiting controlling distance on the feet, outstriking Sabatini, and mixing it up with his wrestling and his grappling. I tend to think that's what's going to happen. It's just, again, we have two ways of JSP winning this fight: on the ground, on the feet. For Sabatini, I really only think he can win it on the ground, and on top of that, that's an if he's the better grappler between him and Jonathan Pearce, which I'm slightly going to tend towards JSP for. So it could be Jonathan Pearce to get back in the win column after back-to-back losses. Jonathan Pearce picks up the victory in the Apex by unanimous decision. We go on to our next one here. In the flyweight division, CJ Vergara takes on Ramzobek Temirov. I probably butchered his name. The fighter coming out of Uzbekistan. And Vergara, again, always seems to be the entry-level guy for some of these flyweights coming into the UFC. He took on a Kazakhstani fighter in his last one, Asu Almbayev, by unanimous decision. Vergara is now back, and he's taking on a former Ryzen fighter here in Ramazanbek, I probably butchered that, Ramazanbek Temirov. Temirov's a really good striker, and he's going to give Vergara problems. Now, Vergara has struggled a lot with wrestlers in the UFC because Vergara will not look to wrestle himself. He is not, I don't believe he's never gotten a takedown in his UFC run. Asu Ambayev took him down 9 times. You saw, again, Tatsuro Taira have, a lot of success against Vergara on the ground. He's able to take down Vergara, find an armbar. Cledson Rodriguez, even in a Vergara victory, is able to take him down. Ode Osborne, too, saw some success grappling against CJ Vergara. Again, that's where Vergara has always struggled. And he really shouldn't have to worry about that too much in this fight. That's just not what Temirov, again, I'm probably butchering his name. That's not what the Uzbeki fighter does here. He just doesn't do it. He's a pure striker. At the same time, that's a problem for CJ Vergara because he's just outgunned, I think, in the striking for this fight. I don't know why my camera's like this. Why am I purple now? I don't know why. I'm gonna have to fix my lighting after this prediction then. But I just think Temirov is better. He is the better striker. He should be able to go out here. He hits with more power. He's the much more aggressive fighter as well. Vergara, again, is just one of these lower-level flyweights. He's 33 years old, who gets put in these positions to lose to these up-and-coming guys who are making their UFC debut. I'm going to turn this light right here. There we go. That's better. It's kind of just the position Vergara is supposed to be in. I think Temirov finds a way to get it done. I think he knocks out Vergara pretty easy in this fight. Again, he's a guy who has seen some success in Ryzen in the past. Vergara's striking doesn't wow you. Sure, that's where he's better than some of these other lower level flyweights. In terms of stylistically, he's better that way. But against a guy who's a pure kickboxer who's coming in from Ryzen after back-to-back finishes in the first round in Ryzen, yeah, that's just a difficult fight for CJ Vergara, I think. Give me Ramzobek Temirov? Give me him to win the fight by first round knockout. I like what I've seen. I like the power, especially on 125 pounds. Again, you don't see guys with 10 knockouts. 10 knockouts, 1 submission, and 6 decisions. Again, that 10 knockouts we're looking at specifically. We don't see that a lot in the 125 pound division. On top of that, he's coming from Ryzen, and on top of that, he's fighting CJ Vergara. Ramzobek's going to win the fight. Give me him to get it done by first round knockout. Next up in the welterweight division, we have got Njokuani taking on the Night Train, Jared Gooden, in this fight. It's an interesting stylistic fight here. You're probably just going to see a scrap on the feet, in all fairness. I would expect someone to get knocked out. Now, Njokuani's coming off his split decision victory over Reese McKee over in Atlantic City, New Jersey, on that Blanchfield Fiora card where he won it by split decision. Again, was that fight a split decision? No. Njokuani pretty clearly won that fight. Yeah, Reese McKee pushed him back against the fence, just laid on him, or just hugged him for 6 minutes, but that doesn't win you a fight. Reese McKee did no damage in that fight, and all the damage being done in that one was from Njokuani. Now, Njokuani didn't look incredible in that fight, but I still thought he won every single round. How one judge scored that for Reese McKee was absolutely horrid. Now Njokuani gets Jared Gooden, a guy who's coming off of a victory where he submitted Wellington Turman last December. on that Dariush Sarukian card. Wellington Turman just kind of sucks at this point of his career, so I'm not going to really rate that highly. Before that, for Gooden, he lost a unanimous decision to Carlston Harris. He got out kickboxed by Randy Brown, and before that, actually, wait, that's the only two, yeah, that's the latest run in the UFC for him. It's just Carlston Harris and Turman. I forgot, yeah. Randy Brown's last fight before leaving the UFC. He went outside the promotion. He beat Curtis Millender, beat Aaron Highbaugh, lost Impa Kasanganay. Kasanganay doesn't get back in the UFC, but Gooden does. He beats Doug Usher and DeMarcus Jackson, and welcome back. Again, Kasanganay's in the PFL, which I'm glad he's doing really well for himself, but the UFC gave up on Impa, but then brought back Jared Gooden, who lost to Impa by first round knockout next MMA. Make it make sense. Chidi Njokuani is the way better striker between him and Gooden. Simply put, he is so much better striking-wise than Gooden. Gooden might look to take Chidi Njokuani down. He's got a 100% takedown rate so far in the UFC. He's shot 3. He shot one against Alan Jouban back at UFC 255. Got it. He still lost the fight. Got one against Nicholas Stoltze. He won the fight by first round TKO. And they got one against Wellington Turman. Eventually got the submission in that round. Good for Gooden. I don't know if he's able to take down Njokuani. Njokuani's, if there's anything we can get out of Njokuani's last win in New Jersey over Reese McKee, is that, okay, Njokuani can stuff takedowns. Because Reese McKee came into that fight. Again, McKee is a zombie. He'll just eat as much damage as possible and he'll keep walking forward. But Reese McKee, again, he set out his game plan in that fight against Chidi Njokuani that it's basically, I'm wrestling. I gotta get this fight down to the ground. I gotta make this fight as boring as possible to stay in the UFC and just to get my win money. He obviously didn't get that done, and Njokuani, again, did a decent job stuffing takedowns in that fight. I would expect Gooden to come into this fight with some similar, not entirely the same game plan as McKee, because McKee, again, kind of just completely foregoed all of his striking. He really didn't do much of it. He was just trying to get this fight down, just simply out-control Njokuani in that one. I wouldn't expect Gooden to do the same exact thing, but I think it's definitely going to be in his back pocket. At least he's something that he's going to try in this fight with Njokuani. Will he be all that successful in doing so? I don't think so. I think Njokuani should be able to stuff takedowns. I think Njokuani should be able to keep the fight on the feet. And in a striking fight, I like Njokuani to get it done. And I understand, again, Njokuani lost to Michal Zolchechik on the feet. He got finished in the first round. Albert Duraev, again, it was half grappling, half striking, but Duraev beat him. And Gregory Rodriguez won a crazy fight and finished him in the second round. I get that. But I like Njokuani striking more than what I like out of Jared Gooden. I do, right? Saw Gooden outstrike by Kasanganay, who again is starting to be an elite MMA fighter. I would say maybe he is at this point of his career. But I've seen Gooden outstrike by Randy Brown. I've seen Abubakar Nurmagomedov outstrike him. I get that was 4 years ago at this point, or 3 years ago at this point. But still, Abubakar Nurmagomedov was always one of the worst Nurmagomedovs, and he outstruck Jared Gooden. There wasn't much wrestling going on in that fight. It was a horrible fight. Don't get me wrong. At UFC 260, was it on the main? It might have been on the main card just because Nurmagomedov's last name. No, I think it was might have been on the prelims. But still, Gooden's really never impressed me all that much. He beat Wellington Turman, but Wellington Turman's like 36 years of age now. Wellington Turman's chin's always been horrible. I get that didn't really play too much of a factor in that fight, but again, Turman is well over the hill. He went 3-6 in the UFC. His last win came in 2022 where he pulled a victory over Misha Cirkunov out of his ass. I think Njokuani should win the fight. Again, he is the much better striker between him and Gooden. Gooden is really just a boxer, but you're going to see Njokuani use that Muay Thai, use those kicks effectively. He's the bigger fighter in this one. He's 6'3", Gooden is 6 feet, and Njokuani's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight as well. I like Njokuani to get it done. I like him to use his kicks effectively. I get it. He's an older guy. He's 35, but Gooden's 30. It's not like he is, again, the youngest fighter either. I like Njokuani to get it done. I think his striking's better than Gooden, and I think, again, that kickboxing is going to play a big factor in this fight. I just don't think Gooden's able to effectively close distance in this fight. I think eventually Chidi Njokuani gets the finish. I'm going with Chidi Bang Bang to get it done in the first round. Again, we have seen Gooden finished early by guys like Kasanganay. I think Njokuani does it as well. Again, Gooden is 1-1 in the second run in the UFC, but I think Njokuani again takes advantage and gets the finish in the first round against Jared Gooden in the welterweight division. We go on to our next one here. We go now to Abdul Razak Alhassan here in the middleweight division taking on Josh Fremd. So again, this fight has one of two ways it could go down. Josh Fremd is able to get takedowns, and he's able to hold Abdulrazak Alhassan down. Something that, again, Josh Fremd has not done so far in his UFC career. He's attempted it. He hasn't been all that successful in doing so, and I'm going to talk about, again, what Josh Fremd has done in the UFC, because it's been an interesting run for him. But I don't think he can strike with Abdulrazak Alhassan. Unless he, again, extends this fight deep in the fight and can just get out of the first round and, parts of the second round too. Maybe that's how Fremd gets it done. But I think this is tough sledding for Josh Fremd in this fight. I think it is. I remember when Josh Fremd came to the UFC, he had a bunch of submissions. He was really successful at, winning fights in the ground. I watched him in FAC, Dana White looking for a fight FAC, the James Krause promotion in Kansas City, and I saw him pick up a huge victory over Joel Bauman by second round rear naked choke, get his contract in the UFC. In the first fight I saw Josh Fremd in the UFC, I mean, we all did, he got out-grappled and just out-controlled for 15 minutes by Anthony Hernandez. Well, that's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. Hernandez is fighting in a main event next week against Michel Pereira. We're going to get to that fight, obviously, next week. But no shame in that, right? That's a tough entry-level fight in the UFC. But I think, again, Josh Fremd taking on Alexander Hernandez, whether it being on short notice or not, kind of showed, how much, faith, I would say, the UFC had in Josh Fremd and potentially being somewhat of a decent guy for them. They're giving him Anthony Hernandez in his first fight. But then he comes back, he gets subbed by Tresean Gore, who was 3-2 at the time, who was on the cusp of being cut. He was on the cusp of being just a guy that we thought of, oh, maybe he wasn't that good. He just, got some flash knockouts on the Ultimate Fighter. Maybe Tresean Gore's not really that good. Well, no, Gore submitted Fremd in the second round. Fremd comes back, submits Dricus Dumas, not a bad win. Beats Jamie Pickett by decision, misweight that fight, but then gets TKO'd by Roman Kopylov. I don't know why that fight ever happened. Kopylov was a huge favorite for a good reason, and then just got out-scrambled by Andre Petroski. Petroski, again, similar to what Petroski's last fight against Dylan Budka was, Petroski kind of just does everything better than Petroski's just Josh Fremd, but better. Just like how Petroski was just Dylan Budka, but better. Decent wrestlers, but just Petroski's on a different level. I'm not saying he's on a top 15 level, but Fremd and Budka should be fighting these entry-level guys, and Petroski's well into the UFC and has won like 7 fights now in the promotion, right? Striking-wise, I don't think Fremd's able to compete that much with Abdulrazak Alhassan. Sure, again, if he's able to stay on the outside, he's able just to avoid those big power shots, and he's able to just get Abdulrazak Alhassan out of the first 2 rounds, maybe he's able to have some success. And again, Fremd will be the much larger fighter in terms of height in this one. Fremd is 6'4", Abdulrazak Alhassan is 5'10". Reach-wise, they're, almost identical. You give a slight advantage to Josh Fremd. But that's not going to dictate what happens in this fight, because Abdulrazak Alhassan hits way harder than Josh Fremd. He's going to be able to inflict more damage against Josh Fremd than what Fremd's able to do to Abdulrazak Alhassan. The thing for Alhassan in this fight is going to be his grappling, because again, we saw that even in his last fight, 2 fights ago against Joe Pyfer. Now, Abdulrazak Alhassan had the fight won in his last fight against Cody Brundage, but again, for the second time in Brundage's career, he gets out of a fight that he was losing because of shots to the back of the head, which again, were a little bit suspect in this one against Abdulrazak Alhassan. Not all of them were straight to the back of the head, but Brundage, of course, just like the first time against Malkoun, I can't continue, so fight's over, no contest, whatever. But I would be a little bit concerned with the grappling coming back at you from Abdulrazak Alhassan. Joe Pyfer, a guy who's known for his striking, was able to take down Abdulrazak Alhassan and submit him with an arm triangle choke. Joaquin Buckley out-grappled Abdulrazak Alhassan. That was the fight where Buckley had the Detroit Urban Survival training guy in his corner. It was a very interesting fight, but Buckley was able to go out there, and Buckley was just able to out-survive Abdulrazak Alhassan. He was able to get Abdulrazak Alhassan deep in that fight, and he was able to out-wrestle and out-position him and beat him by decision. You look at what Jacob Malkoun did to Abdulrazak Alhassan as well. He was able to out-wrestle Abdul also and just kind of keep him down and not, again, allow Razak Alhassan to do anything with his striking at the same time. That's where I'm a little bit concerned with Abdulrazak Alhassan in this fight with Josh Fremd. It's just if Fremd's able to take him down and just able to go back to that well multiple times. But where I'm concerned with Josh Fremd is Abdulrazak Alhassan's going to strike early, and he's going to hit very hard early, and he's going to put away Josh Fremd very, quickly in this fight. That's where I'm leaning. I think, again, Abdulrazak Alhassan blitzes Josh Fremd early. Fremd's not able to escape, and boom, he catches him with a big shot and puts him away. That's probably the most likely outcome in this fight. Again, if Josh Fremd's going to be able to get it done, he's going to have to, again, extend the fight. He's going to have to wrestle some, which is something that he hasn't really done so far in the UFC. Again, Fremd, I thought, for the most part, was billed into the UFC as a good grappler who, again, is going to wrestle you, he's going to grind you out, and he really hasn't done that so far in the UFC. Striking wise, I think Alhassan's better. I just think he is for more power. Volume wise, maybe Fremd's able to take over that way, but again, that's gonna have to be something that's gonna, transpire throughout the entire fight, and it's gonna take a while for Fremd to build up to. I think Abdurazak Alhassan, I'm not gonna say has this one in the bag, but I think he's definitely gonna go out here and win this fight. Give me Alhassan to win this one by first round TKO, first round knockout. Again, it's gonna come very, very early in the fight. He's gonna go out there, he's gonna blitz Fremd, and he's gonna put him away. So give me Abdurazak Alhassan to pick up the victory over Josh Fremd. He'll get it done early in the first round here in the middleweight division. Next up, we've got Daniel Rodriguez taking on Alex Morono. Again, I don't completely understand why Morono goes from losing to Nico Price on a main card of a pay-per-view, but for one, Price is on the undercard of this card, and Morono's on the main card, and two, I don't know why Morono upgrades opponents from Daniel Rodriguez. And again, this has always been a thing with Alex Morono. Morono, he's a coach at this point of his career for the most part, but he will take fun fights for him. And again, we saw that in the Court McGee fight and hell, the Nico Price fight as well. He always thought he can beat Joaquin Buckley as well, a fight that he had in 2023. And now he gets D-Rod. I don't think this fight's going to go too well for Alex Morono. I get it. Daniel Rodriguez hasn't looked great in his last 3 fights, right? I mean, he loses to Neil Magny. He gets subbed in the 3rd round. Ian Machado Gary TKOs him in the 1st round. And then Kelvin Gastelum beats him. But Gastelum, again, missed weight. They had to, reshuffle things and whatever. I'm not going to really put down Daniel Rodriguez because of Kevin Gastelum's mishaps in that fight. Purely looking at Daniel Rodriguez and Alex Morono, D-Rod is just better than him. This is going to be a striking fight, and D-Rod should come out of it with his hand raised. I don't think Morono really mixes this up with the grappling much, and if he tries to, I don't think he's going to be all that successful. Daniel Rodriguez, to me, is just the way better striker, and unless he completely has fallen off a cliff at 37 years of age, which I don't think he did look that bad against Gastelum. Again, I always thought Gastelum was going to win that fight just because I think Kelvin Gastelum's a better fighter than Daniel Rodriguez, but on top of that, the weight issues don't really help Gastelum's case as well. So again, I don't think that's that bad of a loss for Rodriguez. I think in this fight, he's going to get primarily a striking battle with Morono. And Morono, guys, he just looked horrible against Nico Price. He was getting beat to the punch every single time. He was getting out-scrambled in the wrestling department, even though, again, that's not going to play too much of a factor in this fight. But again, Morono was just getting beat to the punch every single time by Nico Price. Daniel Rodriguez should be able to do the same exact thing. We're going to see somewhat of a brawling style fight in this one, but Alex Morono, in all fairness, is a very weird fighter. Sometimes Alex Morono just doesn't make sense. Like, again, sometimes he will lose to Nico Price and look horrible at that, and then bounce back and, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but then bounce back and then beat up on Daniel Rodriguez. Personally, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think D-Rod should have his way in this fight. D-Rod should be able to outstrike Morono. He should be able to, again, put together these combinations, and he should be able to put down Morono. And again, I think he'll put him down at some point in this fight. I don't think he'll be able to finish him. But again, just based off of Morono's last performance against Nico Price, where he just looked awful, Daniel Rodriguez should be able to get it done. Because again, I think Daniel Rodriguez beats Nico Price. I don't think that's a far-fetched statement at all. I think a lot of people would agree with me in that point that, again, that Rodriguez should beat Price. And again, I think the only reason Morono is getting this fight, Rodriguez is getting this fight, it's because he's lost 3 in a row. They want to get him a victory. And for Morono, he's more than a willing guy that's going to take a fight like Daniel Rodriguez. But Daniel Rodriguez, even at 37 years of age, should be the way better striker in this fight. He should be able to go out here and outstrike his way to victory in this one. The wrestling shouldn't really play too much of a factor in this one. And I get it. Again, Rodriguez has lost 3 straight fights, but those are against really good guys. Again, Magny, Machado Gary, and Gastelum. Those are all top 15 guys. Morono's really never been in that top 15. I don't think he's going to have any success striking with Daniel Rodriguez, and I think Daniel Rodriguez will outstrike Alex Morono en route to a 30-27 unanimous decision victory for D-Rod. I think, again, Rodriguez gets back on the right track after, again, the whole weight issues or whatnot on Gastelum's side in his last fight and all that controversy surrounding that fight. Rodriguez gets back on track with this win in this fight against Alex Morono. So give me Rodriguez. As we go on to our next one here, why is this fight so high on the card? Why is Corey McKenna versus Julia Polastri the feature fight on this card? Maybe this gets changed. On Tapology, obviously it's not. Tapology has it as the second prelim of the night, but on the UFC's website, they have it as the 4th to last fight. I forgot we got Grant Dawson and Rafa Garcia next, but on the UFC's website, this is the fight that's going to go 4th to last. Why? Julia Polastri is 0-1 in the UFC, went 1-1 in the Contender Series, and Corey McKenna is 3-2 in the UFC, but is coming off a loss. McKenna's never impressed me, I'll be honest with you. I think I picked her to beat Jacqueline Emodine, but that's a pick that I just switched myself towards the end of the week. looking more at it, I was like, yeah, McKenna, I think Amorim's the better grappler, and that's what happened, obviously. I just thought, again, I thought McKenna should be able to, going into that one, I thought McKenna was going to be able to keep it standing, but Amorim got that one down pretty quickly and finished her, and actually, no, McKenna took her down, and Amorim threatened off her back. But McKenna, like, looking back on it, McKenna doesn't really impress me anywhere. I mean, look at the Cheyenne Vlismas fight. She beats Cheyenne Vlismas, but doesn't do anything impressive in that one. Miranda Granger, she gets her down, eventually submits her with her Von Flue. That's probably her best victory to date in the UFC. The Kay Hansen fight, you can make the case Kay Hansen won that one in all fairness. And then McKenna beats Vanessa Demopoulos on the Contender Series. Like, this is just a low-level fight, guys. It's all this is. McKenna is not high-level at all. And for Julia Polastri, again, this is a fighter who lost to Josephine Knutson in her first fight by unanimous decision. Polastri sees her only success in the fight in wrestling with Knutson. She ends up winning a round in that fight because of the grappling she's able to do in the second round, but on the feet, Knutson is way better. Now, again, McKenna's not that great on the feet either. She's very slow. Her combinations don't really come together all that quickly. Like, again, I wouldn't be concerned for Julia Polastri in the feet against, again, Corey McKenna. But on the ground, that's where this fight's going to be won and lost. Again, McKenna shot herself in the foot in her last fight against Amorim because she took Amorim down. Eventually, again, she got tapped out. The referee stopped the fight, but then McKenna said, oh, I didn't tap out, even though she did. And then Amorim just had to get the submission again. It was kind of ridiculous, but again, it worked out because Amorim eventually got the sub. But it was just a weird fight as a whole. It depends on if Amorim's able to get if Polastri's able to get this fight down. What I will say about Polastri, unlike Amorim's a good jiu-jitsu player. Her wrestling leaves some to be desired. Polastri's going to get that takedown on you. Her wrestling is not that bad. As apparent again in the Knutson fight, she shot 3 takedowns and got every single one. She got one a round, which is usually the key that I say for grapplers in winning fights. Get one takedown a round and you can win it. Because, again, the damage that you're able to do and the control time you're able to ride out in that one round or with that one takedown should be enough. If you don't light your opponent up, should be able to win the round. Again, Polastri didn't do so. Again, she got outstruck, and Knutson got back up to her feet in the third round, or reversed it and got back up to her feet. But I think Polastri should be able to get takedowns against Corey McKenna. I think that's where, again, we differentiate her and Jacqueline Amorim. And don't get me wrong, I think Amorim's got better jiu-jitsu as a whole, but control-wise, I like Polastri. I think Polastri's able to get a takedown here, and I think she's just able, again, to stay on top against Corey McKenna. Corey McKenna's striking doesn't scare me at all. That, I think Polastri's is going to get boxed up in this fight. No. And again, something else with Corey McKenna, she's still very young in her career. She's 25 years old, still training at Team Alpha Male, obviously in Sacramento, California. Fighters from Wales, now training in Sacramento. Again, she's still young in her career, but there's still a lot to be desired out of McKenna. She's got the shortest reach in the UFC with 58.5. My goodness, Polastri's got 63, and McKenna is the taller fighter as well. McKenna's 5'3", Polastri's 5'2", and McKenna's got a 58-inch reach. Yeah, give me Polastri to win the fight. She should be able to get this fight down. Again, Amorim saw success grappling with McKenna, but that was because of a McKenna takedown. This time, Polastri's going to take McKenna down and just going to ride this one out to a unanimous decision victory. So give me Julia Polastri, give me the Brazilian fighter to beat Corey McKenna, and she will get it done by unanimous decision. To our feature fight, it is Grant Dawson taking on Rafa Garcia. I swear, Grant Dawson always just gets really favorable fights. I don't know. That's just kind of how every time I see Grant Dawson fight, it's just, it's another fight Dawson's a minus 400 favorite in, and it's a fight that he's kind of expected to pick up the victory. Obviously, again, he got that in the main event of a UFC card as well last year and lost to Bobby Green. King Green knocked him out in 33 seconds. And then Dawson's last fight is a fight that, again, he was, I thought, more than expected to go out and win against Joe Selecki. And again, for good reason, he was a huge favorite going that one, and he unanimous decisioned his way to victory over Selecki, out-grappled Selecki, out-wrestled Selecki, and got the dub. What Dawson has done before that, again, I would say the Demirov Magulov victory is very impressive. That was a fight that he was not a minus 500 favorite in. But again, Dawson will go in there, and he will just outwork you. He'll outgrind you on the ground. Again, King Green caught him on the feet. It is what it is. For the most part, Dawson has fixed his cardio. He has fixed the gas tank since, again, that fight against Ricky Glenn, where he just died at the end of 15 minutes and really just, he was just dead to rights at the end of that 15. He has worked on that. You saw that in the Jared Gordon fight. He was able to submit him in the third round with a minute to go. You saw that when he submitted Mark Madsen in the third round where he went 15 minutes and looked good in doing so against Demirov Magulov. And same thing can be said about Selecki. I think, again, Dawson has fixed the cardio. He's taking on a guy, though, and Rafa Garcia is not going to stall out. He's not going to stop. Again, Garcia is a guy who is there for all 15 minutes. He is a high-tempo type guy, a guy that is more than willing to grapple with you, but at the same time, a guy who will punch your face into if you're not willing to grapple with him. That's what he did against Clay Guida. He was able to be really successful in that fight, really turn up the volume against Guida, had 141 significant strikes in that fight. What he did before that, he goes out there, he beats Mahashet by unanimous decision, uses the grappling. Dakar Close beats him, but that's fine. Dakar Close is a really good fighter in his own right. Garcia beats Jesse Ronson, beats Natan Levy, and that's what he's done since, again, dropping his first 2 fights in the UFC to Nasrat Haqparast and Chris Gritzmacher. I just think Dawson's better, though. Again, yeah, Rafa Garcia, he's been able to, out-grapple Natan Levy, Jesse Ronson, Mahashet, but Grant Dawson's on a whole nother level. Again, I don't know where Dawson's, peak is. I don't think it's the title, nor do I think it's the top 5. Maybe the top 10, I think, is where Grant Dawson will kind of peak out at. But against another guy who's just another grappler in Garcia, Dawson's just better. He's going to be the much stronger guy in this one. He's the much bigger guy, and I just like his wrestling compared to what Rafa Garcia's got. Natan Levy, again, did get out-grappled by Rafa Garcia and got out-scrambled and out-wrestled, but at the same time, Natan Levy was still able to take Garcia down 3 times in that fight. Again, Garcia just got the better of some of the grappling exchanges, but still, I like Dawson to go out here and take care of business. He should obviously do that. I'd be concerned for Dawson if Garcia is able to stuff takedowns, because that's something that, again, could happen. If Garcia is able to stuff everything Dawson's throwing at him, maybe then Garcia is able to box him up and win. Because again, Garcia is more than willing to just get into a stand and trade and just a brawling type fight. And he's a tough guy to put away too. He's got a good chin on him. But I do think Dawson's able to find ways to get the fight on the ground. He's just going to use his wrestling, use those doubles, and just again kind of just ride out top positioning in this fight against Rafa Garcia. Again, there's a reason Dawson doesn't really get pushed promotionally. It's because again, he's not the most entertaining stylistic fighter. He's not. Right, he's just going to go out there. Maybe he'll get a late submission, but he's really just he's looking to, effectively use his wrestling, which again, credit to the guy. He's 21-2 now professionally in terms of his UFC run. He's now 9-1 with the only loss being to Bobby Green in main event. He's done his job. That the step up has to come after this fight. Again, Garcia's not a bad guy in his own right. Again, he's 4-3 in the UFC, but coming off some, winning 4 of 5. Garcia's on his way up as well. They're both 30 years of age, but again, Dawson, it just clearly to me is the way better guy. To me personally, this feels just like a levels fight in terms of how good each guy is on the ground. So can Grant Dawson just go out there to out-scramble and to out-wrestle Rafa Garcia in this fight. Our next fight is Brad Tavares and Jun Young Park in the middleweight division. I already talked about this fight a couple months ago when it was originally scheduled. Nothing really changes from that initial prediction. I don't remember what card that was on, what fight night card that was on. But nothing really changes from that initial fight card pick back in July. It's the same fight. It was Lemos Jandiahoba. Nothing changes. I'm going to roll that clip, roll that fight prediction, then we'll get into the main event with Royval and Taira right after. As we go on to our co-main event, this was the other fight I was kind of split on. Brad Tavares, Jun Young Park. The Iron Turtle in Park, Jun Young Park, coming into this fight with a loss to Andrea Muniz in his last fight. Very close fight, but the decision does go Muniz's way. Muniz gets takedowns, doesn't do much with them, but he's got control in that fight. The 3rd round goes to Jun Young Park. The swing round's the 1st. It's just, again, how you score it. Park outstrikes Muniz, but Muniz gets him down, but doesn't do anything with the takedown, so I don't know. I thought Jun Young Park won the fight, but it is what it is. Muniz does win the second, and that's the obvious one. The second and the third are obvious. Second going to Muniz, third going to Park. The swing is the first. I thought Park won, but it is what it is. Park built up a 4-fight winning streak before that, right? Wins over Eric Anders, Joe Holmes, Dennis Tululin, and Albert Duraev. The Duraev win, very impressive. Was able to go out there and get a submission in the second round. I'll be honest with you, Holmes and Tululin were fights that were definitely set up for him to win. Like, Tululin still in the UFC, too. He's going to fight Cedricus Dumas in Abu Dhabi next month, which is weird. I thought this guy was out of the UFC by now. But it is what it is. Again, we already talked about that fight when it was originally scheduled to happen 2 months ago in Saudi Arabia. It's going to happen. It's going to finally happen in Abu Dhabi, but it is what it is. Jun Young Park, again, he beat the crap out of Tulin, beat up Holmes, submitted Duraev, had a very close fight with Muniz. He's getting Brad Tavares, who has been in a million fights in the UFC so far, and this will be walk number 25 for Brad Tavares into the UFC octagon. This is a guy, though, who's been in some wars, right? Again, 5 months ago, got into a war with Gregory Rodriguez, ended up losing the fight in the 3rd round by TKO. He beat Chris Weidman, which is good, I guess, right? Lost to Bruno Silva, lost to Dricus Duplessis, beat Omari Akhmedov, beat Antonio Carlos Jr., but again, when he fought those PFL guys, that was 2021. Tavares has 1 win in the last 3 years, but he's still a very tough out. He can strike, he can give you problems on the feet. It's really dependent on if he can keep the fight standing with Jun Young Park, because I think obviously Park has the advantage on the ground. It's just a matter of if Park is able to take Tavares down. Park's got the advantage on the ground, Tavares is the advantage on the feet. Tavares is getting up there in age, he's 36, Jun Young Park's 33. But my thing with Tavares is he doesn't really get taken down all that much. Chris Weidman tried 8 times, and Tavares stuffed every single one of them, right? Gregory Rodriguez shot 6 times, only got 2, but Tavares got back up to his feet. Rodriguez beat him on the feet. That's where he ended up getting the stoppage, right? Was with his strikes on the feet, not on the ground. Right, Jun Young Park's last loss before Muniz was the Gregory Rodriguez loss. And again, I know Park was on the losing end of a wrestling heavy attack by Andrea Muniz. It's not going to be something like that in this fight. Again, Jun Young Park is the better grappler. He's going to be the one pursuing that takedown and trying to get the fight down, trying to get, again, a submission like his 3 straight rear naked choke victories against Holmes, Tulin, and Duraev. But my thing in this fight is Brad Tavares is a very tough guy to take down. Chris Weidman, who again, I understand where Weidman's at this point of his career, but still All-American wrestler Chris Weidman, former UFC champion. I understand that was like 10 years ago at this point, but still, Chris Weidman can still wrestle, and Brad Tavares stuffed all 8 of his takedowns coming his way against Weidman. I understand, again, that was Weidman's first fight after breaking his leg against Uriah Hall, but still, that says something. Tavares doesn't really get taken down. Akhmedov did it a couple times, but Tavares was able to get back up to his feet, and he stuffed 7 out of the 9 takedowns. Omar Akhmedov shot on him, right? Tavares was able to beat a very good grappler, Antonio Carlos Jr. Shoeface went 1 for 12 on his takedowns in that fight at UFC 257, right? Like, he is a tough guy to take down. Rodriguez did it twice, but again, Tavares popped back up to his feet, and that was not the reason why Tavares lost that fight. I'm taking Brad Tavares to beat Jun Young Park. I don't think Jun Young Park takes him down. I just don't think so. I think Tavares' defensive wrestling game is just good enough to keep the fight standing, and I think Tavares is able to keep it striking, and I think he wins the decision here. Again, this might be the unpopular pick. Tavares is a plus 155 dog on Tapology. 85% of voters are going with the Iron Turtle, Jun Young Park, 15% going with Brad Tavares. I will join that 15%, and I'm going to take Brad Tavares to win the fight. Defensive wrestling is going to be huge in this fight. As long as Tavares is able to keep his back off of the fence and off the mat too, I think he's able to win. I'm going to take Brad Tavares to win this fight by decision. If Tavares is able to keep the fight on the feet, I think he is the better striker, and I think he can go out there and outstrike Jun Young Park. I think he's able to make it not a crazy fight per se, but I think he's able to get in Park's face and make him exchange with him. Gregory Rodriguez made Jun Young Park do that, and Jun Young Park got knocked out in that fight. I'm taking Brad Tavares to go out there and win this fight by unanimous decision. Again, this was the other fight I was split on. I'm going to take Tavares in this one. I'm taking him by unanimous decision. To our main event, Brandon Raw Dog Royval takes on Tatsuro Taira. Okay, this is an interesting fight in the flyweight division because the winner of this fight should be getting a title shot. I don't know what they're doing currently with Alexandre Pantoja. Again, I kind of thought they were going to go Kai Asakura for him. Obviously, they just got Asakura from Ryzen, but that fight hasn't been announced yet. I assume maybe they're waiting for the winner of this fight, but if I had to guess, Pantoja's probably another fight in November on the John Jones undercard or in December on the final card of the year. It's probably going to be one of the two. Of course, he just fought in May against Urseg in Brazil. Who will his opponent be? I don't know. They could also be waiting for the winner of Moreno Albazi, but you can't give Moreno another shot coming off a loss to Royval, and at the same time, Moreno has lost already 3 times to the champion Pantoja now. So it kind of has to come for the winner of this fight. I don't really want to see Albazi in a title shot, nor do I think Albazi can beat Brandon Moreno at the same time. So I think the winner of this fight will get a title shot. Now, Kai Kara France is in play as well, but Albazi technically beat Kai Kara France, even though I thought Kai Kara France won, but it gets complicated. Let's make it simple. The winner of this fight should get a title shot. Royval is the #1 contender. He has beat Brandon Moreno in Mexico. He has lost to Pantoja in the past, but I think he's deserving of another title shot if he's able to beat the undefeated Tatsuro Taira. And it's ridiculous that this fight's in the UFC Apex. The winner of this fight's fighting for a world championship, and it's in the Apex. It's absolutely horrible. Taira, 24 years old, undefeated at 16-0, coming off a win in his last fight in the main event of an Apex card against Alex Perez, where it was, of course, that knee injury that, Taira's on his back and he twists Alex Perez's, just kind of leg down as he's going down for the takedown, trying to drag him down to the ground, and Perez blows his knee out, fight over, TKO, Taira wins. I've never seen that before in MMA. Was it just an accident? No, I think that's what Taira was trying to do. And again, you got to do what you got to do to win fights. And Taira picks up the victory over Perez. Now, again, Tatsuro Taira has not seen anybody close to the caliber of fight skill. That's what I'm trying to get out of Brandon Royval. Obviously, I mean, look at Taira's run so far in the UFC. Carlos Candelario, CJ Vergara, Jesus Aguilar, Edgar Chairez, Carlos Hernandez, Alex Perez. He hasn't fought really an elite guy yet. Perez has always been a guy that's hovered around the top 8. I understand he had a title shot once upon a time against Figueiredo, but this is a very tough fight. Now, I am a little bit concerned with Brandon Royval because of his takedown defense, right? Royval, he fought a lot better in the Morono fight. Don't get me wrong. He was able to stuff takedowns some from Morono, but Morono, I felt, just didn't go to the well enough against Brandon Royval. I thought the takedowns were going to be there for Morono, and he landed 3 of 5 of them. He just didn't keep going back to it, and Royval was outstriking him. Royval was piecing Morono on the feet. That fight should not have been a split decision. I thought rounds 3, 4, and 5 were very clearly Brandon Royval's, and you can make the case round 1 is Brandon Royval's as well, but the last 3 rounds of that fight pretty clearly went to raw dog Brandon Royval. He's a problem for Taira on the feet. But again, if Taira gets those takedowns, it's going to be a long night in the office for Brandon Royval, because that's what Pantoja did, right? Royval outstrikes Pantoja in that fight. It's just every time Pantoja was able to, again, every time Pantoja was in somewhat of trouble on the feet, boom, went for the takedown. Royval then, he tries to the takedown, but instead of trying to build back up to his base or trying to get back up to his feet, he stays flat on his back and just starts punching Pantoja from his back. And that's not going to win you fights. I'm a little bit concerned with him and Tatsuro Taira. Royval's grappling's not horrible in terms of submissions, pure submissions, but his wrestling leaves some to be desired. And that's where Taira can, I think, maybe have a very clear advantage of winning this fight. However, we have never seen Tatsuro Taira in a 5-round environment. He's not been in this spot before. Royval has been in main events. He's fought back-to-back 25-minute fights against, again, Pantoja and against Morono. He beat Morono in a 25-minute fight, and Royval seemed to get better as that fight went on against a guy in Brandon Morono who has been in many 25-minute fights before in the past. That's why I don't mind Brandon Royval in this spot, and that's why I'm picking Brandon Royval to beat Tatsuro Taira here in the Apex. I'm taking Royval to win this fight by unanimous decision. Okay. Tatsuro Taira is going to see a lot of success early in this fight. Tatsuro Taira will win the first 2 rounds of this fight. He will find takedowns. He will get Royval down. But as this fight goes on, Royval has the better cardio. He's got the better conditioning. And he is going to drag this fight out. And he's going to give Tatsuro Taira some problems. I think he's going to. On the feet again, Brandon Royval is the way better striker between him and Taira. You're hard-pressed to find better strikers in the weight class than Royval. Again, he will mix it up with you. He's not afraid to take a punch. But again, he's got that. Again, he's a longer fighter for 125. And he is going to be in your face, and he's going to throw volume at you. I think it's a tough fight on the feet for Taira. Again, Taira should have an advantage on the ground, but as this fight goes on, we have never seen Taira in this 25-minute environment before, and he's against a guy that I don't think he's able to finish. Sure, maybe you'll see some success on the ground against Royval, but I don't think he's able to finish the guy. We've never seen Taira in this 25-minute environment in the main event / championship rounds, and I think Royval kind of checks him here, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to say Tatsuro Taira is a fraud by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Royval kind of sends him a message being ranked the #1 guy in the weight class and sends Taira back down the ladder for a little bit. And Taira's 24 years old. He's going to be fine. He will eventually fight for a championship. I think so someday in the UFC. I just don't think it's right now. Again, Taira has kind of been booked right to get to the spot where he got, to get into a potential, #1 contenders fight, a championship eliminator against Brandon Royval. But this is where a former title challenger and the #1 ranked guy in Royval steps up and beats him. I'm taking raw dog Brandon Royval to go out there and pick up the victory over Tatsuro Taira. Royval is going to get better as the fight goes on. I don't think Taira is going to get better as the fight goes on. Again, it's exhausting going out there and wrestling. You get it done for the first 2 rounds, and normally, again, for Taira, he's got 1 more round that he's just got to win, and then he wins the fight. No. Now, instead of winning those first 2, instead of only after winning those first 2 rounds, only having a 5-minute period to go out there and go win, he's still got to fight for another full 15 minutes. I think Brandon Royval picks up the victory. I think he gets it done. I think he outstrikes Tatsuro Taira. I think Brandon Royval keeps his ranking at the #1 spot in the weight class. I think you could book him versus Alexandre Pantoja next. And I think you have Kai Kara-France take on the winner of Brandon Morono and Abir Abazi. Again, if Kai Kara-France wants another title shot, the UFC, again, they have him in a perfect spot here. Yeah, you beat Steve Erceg, but if you want a title shot, you have to avenge 1 loss, either your loss against Albazi or your loss in a championship fight against Brandon Morono. Go out there and win that fight and then you get a title shot while we wait for Pantoja and Royval in the meantime. Because I guess, again, I don't think Kaya Sakura is getting a title shot for now. My guess is they start Asakura with, I don't know. Is Mateus Nicolau booked? Because that's a very easy fight for Asakura to go out there and win. Yeah, he's fighting Asu Ambayev. They start him with Tim Elliott instead. He beat Sumadarji his last fight. Yeah, that's my guess. They start Kaya Sakura with Tim Elliott. But for now, again, we are going with Brandon Royval to beat Tatsuro Taira in the main event. The striking and the conditioning will be enough for Raw Dog Brandon Royval to pick up the victory. So, folks, thank you all for watching a UFC Fight Night Royval versus Taira full card predictions here on the channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. Make sure to hit that like button down below if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. And we'll be back next week for another UFC Apex main event. Michelle Pereira takes on Alexander Hernandez. I'm so excited for the Apex again, folks. Yep, it's awesome. Folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba, forever.